Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Rabbi sahli wa yasidri amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning to everyone and welcome to today's training on i-Viva system. I am Nordamia, the moderator of today's training. I'm very pleased to see you virtually and welcome all of you to this training. This is a great honor to inform you that the Centre for Postgraduate Studies, in collaboration with the Information Technology Division, we would like to introduce a new system focusing on the role of supervisor, the i-Viva system. Our speaker today is Professor Dr. Shahrul Naim Siddiq. He is our Deputy Dean at Centre for Postgraduate Studies, handling research, publication, and student development. Prof. Shahrul Naim is a senior member of IIUM, received his bachelor and PhD degrees from Vanderbilt University, USA in 1998 and 2008. He is currently a professor with the Department of Mechatronic Engineering, Faculty of Engineering. He also currently serving the Centre for Postgraduate Study as Deputy Directors who overlooks, among others, into the postgraduate research related policies, online system, and students in the university. So without further delay, I would like to welcome our professor today, Prof. Naim, to give his presentation.
Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Sister Mia, for that kind introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all the audience today. I hope everybody is doing well. It's an exam week, and hopefully, your schedule is little flexible to join the session, inshallah. We hope that this session will be beneficial for you, especially with regard to thesis and also the Viva management of your supervising, our postgraduate student who's doing research work. So as introduced by Sister Damia just now, I'm a Deputy Dean at the Centre for Postgraduate Studies, overlooking basically into policy related to research and publication. And it's great honor for me today to be with you guys today this morning to introduce you this the system that we have recently launched. I think in the late last year, but it's kind of soft launch. But at this stage, we are basically trying to advocate, trying to introduce the system for IIM community to inshallah adopt it so that the system of thesis management and also Viva management is more streamlined, is more structured, and also we can cut short the process of, especially for the student to sit for the Viva. That is our main actually objective when we develop the system. We want to make the process short so that the student don't have to wait so long to sit for the Viva. All right. So this session, I'll try to make it very informal. If you have any question, perhaps you can just throw it in the chat room so that I can see and address your question, your concern, your critique, your comment straight away, inshallah. All right. And if I'm not very clear to you as well, please let me know. All right. So basically, we have developed the system. We have starting to develop the system since 2 years ago, 2019. So long time to develop the system. We developed the system together with our team from the library. So meaning that we developed the system fully in-house using all our resource using our human resource, facilities, technologies, and also the policy that we have developed, everything in-house. So this is, I would say, I'm proud to say that IIUM made system, a totally made system. So as the name imply, i-Viva, so the system actually is very close to Viva. And before the students sit for the Viva, of course, they have to submit their research report in the form of thesis or dissertation, right? So basically, we try to capture all the process to manage the thesis as well as Viva into this platform. So this can be considered as a unified platform to handle the student thesis and Viva. And if you are aware about iMonitor system, that is the first system that CPS has developed related to research student as well. The objective is to monitor the research progress of the student throughout their study. So it's kind of very natural after the student has completed using iMonitor system, they will start to use i-Viva as a continuation to submit the research report that they have written. So this system is, I would say, admin-centric because, you know, administrator in the system is like controller to the system. They are the one responsible to manage the traffic of the process so that the process will go smoothly. Yeah? So all the process that is related to i-Viva, the module, the menu actually is related to administrator as in the as somebody who will evaluate and also certify the process. But of course, there are other users to the system as well. The user here are assigned a different role. Of course, we have student and supervisor, and this training is meant for supervisor. We have other role as well when it comes to the i-Viva system, such as the examiner, of course. We have internal and external examiner menu for the under the system. We also have the role of HOD, the Deputy Dean of Postgraduate, as well as the Dean, because these people actually are responsible on approving the work of the student. And lastly, of course, we have library as one of the role that is to pull or that is to store the student thesis. And i-Viva is not meant totally to replace the current practice at different kuliah. I know that to adopt to a new system will take some time. So this, for the time being, I would say as an alternative for the kuliah, for the Centre of Studies to consider and to adopt the system. Slowly, we try to phase out the manual process and try to adopt i-Viva. So it is under the kuliah or the Centre of Study prerogative to decide whether to adopt or not to adopt now the system. Then of course, if you decide to adopt, we are very pleased and we will work with you very closely to see if there is any issues, if there is any problem rise from the use of the system, inshallah. All right, so basically, I would divide my presentation today into 3 parts. The first one is about the general overview of the process of how thesis and Viva is managed currently at the Centre of Studies. And then the second part, we will go and see how the system will cater all these processes, how the system is made aligned to the processes. It's quite challenging because even though there are general guidelines provided by CPS on the conduct of on the management conduct of thesis as well as i-Viva to the Centre of Study, but the practice or the implementation at the kuliah somehow, you know, may vary. So to make it standard, to make it align, that's why we call you and to see whether the current practice at your center of study, if it's a bit stray off from the system, you can try to find ways to eventually align your practice to the i-Viva system. And the last part is question and answer as usual, if you have time. Okay, all right, now the first session is about the description of the process again. We have basically 12 processes that is related to Viva, related to thesis and Viva management. Okay, so all these processes actually are in i-Viva system. All right, so it starts with the student to submit the intent to submit their research work. That happened 6 months, at least 6 months in prior to the actual submission of the thesis. So we have the 6-month period before, so the supervisor, for example, can find a suitable examiner for the student, and of course for the student to prepare their research report for the final submission. So they can do this within 6-month period. But with the system, we hope that the time of the 6 months can be cut short. We target for 3 months so that the whole process can be more, it's shorter basically. Okay, so this process is mandatory for all students before they submit the actual report. So they have to submit the intent form to the Centre of Study PG office to show their commitment toward the final submission of thesis. And the next process after they submit the intent form, by the way, the intent form will be sent to the supervisor usually, and the supervisor will sign and submit to the office just for the office record. Okay, so once the student has submitted the intent form, basically the supervisor will try to approach the suitable examiner, the internal and external, and when they approach, they will send together the student work in the form of the abstract of the work. Okay, and this actually fall under the abstract submission. So menu. So after the student submit the abstract to the supervisor will kind of go through and check if it is good enough. And after the supervisor say okay, then basically the supervisor will try or will start to look after the examiner, internal and external examiner. And of course, if the examiner, especially the external examiner, is not in the current examiner database, and usually what happened, the supervisor will nominate this new external examiner for approval. So as for now, the approving authority of external examiner is at the kuliah level. So kuliah has the final say on the external examiner, and eventually this name will be sent to Senate for notification. Where last time Senate is the authority to approve, but now we have changed the policy to make things more lenient and simpler. Okay, and if all the examiners say okay, then what happened? The name will be sent to the Kuliah Postgraduate Committee for the final endorsement. Okay, so after that, again, this name will be sent to the University Postgraduate Committee and then later to the DCM and Senate for notification. Okay, that is done. When the examiner list is completed, then it's time for the student to submit their work, right? So the student will submit the work to the PG office, and then after the supervisor approve, and the PG office will check and will go through whether the format is okay, because this document is needed to be sent to the examiner for the evaluation. So the conformity to the format that the university has set has to be done thoroughly, and this is done usually by the administrator at the Centre of Study. After this is done, then the next is the DDPG office, the DPG, the Deputy Dean of Postgraduate, to endorse the report. Okay, so once the DPG say okay, so the system basically will set the student status to TE. TE means thesis examine. Okay, so when the student is under thesis examine, basically he won't be needed to pay for tuition fees anymore. So as much possible, it's fair for us to set this status once the DDPG endorse the this first round of, or this first version of the report to be evaluated by examiner. Okay, so and then the next menu or the next stage of process is for the examiner appointment, and this occur at the Centre of Study as well as CPS. Centre of Study currently manage master student, and CPS is to handle PhD student. So both basically will appoint the examiner respectively, and then they will also send all the document required for the examiner to fill in the report form, the honorarium form, and whatnot. And once the examiner say okay with the appointment, then we'll start the tracking process. So this is another important menu under the current system that we have developed to track the evaluation process, because this usually take the longest time that drag the student viva, because we need to get all the report from the examiner basically before we can set the viva for the student. So if one cause the delay, and then everything will get delayed. So a proper tracking system, a proper reminder system to the examiner is paramount in this aspect, so that the student viva can be done as soon as possible. Okay, and then the next stage of the process, after all the report has been received by the either Centre of Study or CPS, we will, or they will set for the viva or P10 in the case of master by research, post examination meeting, for that is short form for P10 for master student. Okay, and during the viva session, after the viva session, the result will be deliberated, and then the post-viva supervisor will be appointed during the meeting. All right, and the next stage after this is over is for the post-viva supervisor to monitor the submission of the final thesis. The student has to do all the correction given by the examiners, and then they have to prepare the thesis and the correction list and some other document for the final submission, and these are all need to be endorsed or need to be checked by the post-viva supervisor. And if the post-viva supervisor say okay, then all the document will go to the administrator, and then the DPG, and finally to the dean to say okay, then only the student is considered to complete the whole process. So once this is done, the student will fill in the declaration form to identify the copyright class of the work as well as the open access status. Now the Tan-Sri Rector try to very much advocate our work, research work, actually the student thesis in this aspect to be shared to the mass. So we have the we have actually provide or introduce these new facilities, new policy to set our thesis to be open access. Of course, there are other options as well. In case, for example, if the work is confidential, then we have to restrict or to set confidential the work. So these all can be done to the system, though it's not even being practiced in the current mode of operation. Even in the manual process of i-Viva, the setting of the type status open access is still very new, but it's already embedded into i-Viva system. And then what happened next is the library will pull the thesis from the i-Viva system and put it into their system called Student Repository platform for their record. And that actually marked the end of the whole process. Is there any question before we go to the second session on the system itself?
Yes, Dr. Naim Siddiq. Thank you so much, mashallah. I just want to know regarding the examiners. You said that they were given the time to submit it. If some examiners they are not submitting, then is there any procedure that how to deal with that?
Okay. I can perhaps respond to your question by putting class on the type of examiner who did not submit the report on time. So basically, we give to the examiner for the master student 30 days and for the PhD 45 days to complete the evaluation. All right. So if they couldn't complete the evaluation by this time, the CPS or COS will give some times for the examiner to complete 2 weeks usually, 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, depend on the response of the examiner. If they really need time, they will justify, and with that justification, we try to extend for some more times. So if there is no response after this 2 weeks, there's no justification. So what happened is we will try to basically find ways to say it is no more. We don't need your report anymore, but this has to be done after the consent of that supervisor. Then we have to reappoint the examiner and the whole process will restart. But bears in mind, when we nominate the examiner, usually we'll have alternative examiner, right? So usually this name will be selected as our first choice to replace the examiner that missed the submission of the evaluation. And then if the alternative examiner cannot complete still, then we have to go to the last stage, that is new nomination of examiner, and it has to go again to the KPGC for endorsement. So it takes a long time. So to do that, perhaps you will see in the system later on whether the choice of the examiner is right or not for our student. There are some variables that we can check whether this, because we can check whether this examiner available or not. So we have also considered that into the system, as I'll show you later on, inshallah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to the next stage part of the session about the system itself. So this is the landing page of i-Viva. So you can access this page from the given URL, iviva.iium.edu.my. So you can try to go into the system now. Or maybe I can just go with you. Just click on the system. All right. So in the system, you see you have these 3 options: student, staff, and excellent examiner. As staff, it can be the administrator, it can be the academic staff. Right? And what I mean by academic staff, they can be supervisor, they can be examiner, internal examiner, they can be HOD, they can be DDPG, as well as the dean, as well as library. So to enter into the system, they have to log in as staff. So we click on staff, you have to key in your credential as usual, and you click on login, and you see the system. You will see the system. If you have, and you can try your computer now if you want. Otherwise, you can just look at the shared screen. So I believe all of you is familiar with this view, right? So it's almost similar to iMonitor view. Because at the end of the day, we plan to merge the two into one unified platform, i-Viva and iMonitor. So it's the same as iMonitor. Yeah, the screen can be divided into 3 columns. The left one is the main menu, and then the middle one is dashboard, the detail about your supervision, and the one on the right column is notification. Notification. Where should I start? Perhaps the left one, the dashboard. So depending on the role that is assigned to you, you must have seen one of the role on the left side. in this case as supervisor. In my case, just for trial, I have this role as well being assigned to me as administrator, as DDPG, as the dean, and as intern examiner, and also post-viva supervisor. But you don't have to worry. At least you must have the supervisor role. All right. So if you don't have the supervisor role, you cannot see in your system now. There are two ways to solve the problem. The first is always go back to the kuliah and ask the administrator in the PG office to assign you the role of supervisor. Otherwise, we can do it now as well. So what you have to do is you just need to share in the chat room your username, your email username. And then our technical team will assign you the role. All right. So if you click under supervisor, so you see all this menu that I just explained just now, starting from the intention until copyright declaration.
Salam, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi. Yes, Prof.
Are you showing us the interface now?
Yes.
Because I cannot see it. It's still in for your slides.
Sorry. Where should I? Maybe I can just show the screen.
Prof, yeah, we can see right now.
Okay, sorry. Just now, because I switched screen from PowerPoint to the browser.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Okay, now, so now I hope when I explain about the screen, you can visualize at least, because the screen is almost, as I told you earlier, like iMonitor. So you must have been using iMonitor for your student report submission. So this is exactly the same. So you see on the right side, you have this notification counter to show how many submission your student has sent to you from intention, abstract, and completion checklist, the document for the supervisor to check. Okay, and this notification actually is also reflecting the number of email that you must have received from the system. So when the process is triggered, when the student has submitted the document, basically an email will be sent to the supervisor. But sometimes, of course, the email go to spam or trash box. Then the supervisor will miss it. So I would advise from time to time, especially after the communication with the student, you join or you log in into the system and see whether you have any request made by your student for you to respond. So this is the function of the notification box. The middle column, basically like iMonitor. So you have your status as supervisor to your supervisee, as chairman to the supervisory committee, as a member of supervisory committee, as supervisor or as co-supervisor. Excuse me. So in my case, for example, I have 1 supervisee and 4 co-supervisee. And I can see the detail here. And the one on the left side, the menu that I just mentioned, is the list of menu you can find under supervisor that is related to the thesis and i-Viva. So if I click in, okay, now, again, you can see under the main menu, under the dashboard, you must have this role, supervisor. If you don't have it now, so you can always go back to the kuliah officer, PG administrator, to assign you the role. Otherwise, we can assign you, provided you give us your login. You can give to our technical team now in the chat room so that they can assign. So once they assign, instantly you can see your role, and then you can access all this menu. But of course, for the time being, you don't have anything to show because your student has not using the system. Just for the sake of showing, I have this test. My student has submitted the intent form, and basically I have to respond to the intent form, and so on. Abstract submission, completion checklist, and the rest of the menu. Is anybody has problem with the role, supervisor? Okay, so if you don't have, allow me to go back to my PowerPoint to show you the example of how each menu works. Because right here, some of the menu I don't have content because my student has not reached to the process yet. And you know, the process, i-Viva, one thing, you have to start from A to Z, meaning that you have to start from the student submission of intent until the student upload the document into library. You cannot go in between because all the data are interrelated. And that's why it's quite difficult to show you everything, because we don't have the complete set of data yet, because there's no student who has completely used the system. So I will go to my PowerPoint back, at least to show you some of the sample screenshot that we have generated based on our test data. Okay. Okay, you can see the screen, right? My PowerPoint, technical team?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay. All right, this is the page that you just seen just now. So you have the landing page of i-Viva, or maybe the first page after you click staff as a login from the landing page. Okay, there are two ways to address to the intent submission, either from the notification on the right column. If you have number non-zero over there, then meaning that the student has submitted some document. So you can click on that number to bring you to the page to process the intent form. Otherwise, you go to the menu on the left side and click on the intention to submit research work. So it'll bring you to this page. This is the top part of the page, describing your student, some detail, quite confidential, but just for your eyes, the student matric number and his phone number, and so on. So basically, once the supervisor has agreed with the intention, then he will click agree. And then the next process basically to send the agreement of the supervisor to the respected officer. So you can see here in the window, on the top part is the history of intention submission. The student submitted, and I, as the supervisor, has agreed with the submission. And then the agreement of the intention form is sent to these respected people, to the co-supervisor, to the HOD, to the kuliah DPG, and the kuliah administrator, just for the record. This is the start. So that at least now the kuliah will know the student has started the first step to submit their report. So you have a record here. Okay. After the student has sent the intention form, then only the abstract menu in the student screen will be activated. Before it will be dimmed, it will be deactivated, so that you want to ensure that the student to send the intent form first. Once it has been agreed, the intention, then the abstract, as I told you, is activated from the student side, and they can start submitting the abstract for the approval of the supervisor. Once they submit, then a notification will be sent to the supervisor, and then you can see, at least in this page, under the notification column, abstract submission, I have one here. So I have one request from my supervisor to check his abstract. So I can click on this number, or again, I can go to the supervisor menu, go to the abstract submission and click to access the page, this page. Okay, so depending on the number of students, some supervisor has many students, 12, 15, then they can choose the student that they want to check his abstract. Okay, for the time being, in my case, I only have one request from my student to check his abstract, And once I click the view abstract, and this page will appear. So I can open up the abstract, check, the abstract must be in the PDF form. So the supervisor can check, and if you want to comment anything, then he can put the comment in the given box. Otherwise, he can accept or reject the submission. So this process will continue. If the student abstract is rejected, and then the student need to resubmit until the abstract got accepted. So the criteria to be accepted is mandatory for the next process. The criteria for the abstract to be accepted is mandatory for the next process to happen. So what is the next process? Okay, so this is what I just mentioned just now. Under the history of abstract submission, you see under number 2, the supervisor has verified the abstract and approved. And this is the required status that is needed for the next process. So if you reject, then the student cannot, or you yourself cannot continue with the next menu. So the next menu is the invitation, the selection and invitation to the examiner. All right, so you can imagine that when you want to send the invitation, you have to submit it together with the abstract. That is why the abstract, the final version is mandatory. All right, so to nominate the examiner, you have to search them, right? So for the intern examiner, you don't have to worry. Their name is always in our database. But for the external examiner, we can find them in our current external examiner database. How about if their name is not there? Don't worry, you can register this new name. You can register the external examiner. By the way, to register external examiner can happen at any time. This is a spatial menu we developed just to cater the need to register new external examiner, regardless if you have student or not. Okay, this name will be sent to the KPGC for endorsement. So the way to register new external examiners is very simple. You go to the menu register examiner, and then this page will pop up. So you can check whether their name is in the database by, if you know their staff ID, if by name, by phone number, by email. So you can search them first before you register them. So if they are not in the list, then you can click on the green button on top of the page to register the external examiner. All right. Okay, this is the page to register the new examiner. We developed the page by adopting the standard 5-page CV format that has been endorsed by the Senate. So here you can see the information required for the supervisor to enter. So the name of the examiner and whatnot. And at the bottom part of the page, you can see some more requirement to be filled in. For example, the examiner specialization, their academic qualification, working experience, publication, research, consultancy, and innovation. So it's quite not really difficult, but cumbersome. You will see it when you try to enter. For the time being, to enter this data because of too many data to be entered. But just bear with me, or bear with us. Once we have this data stored in our database, so what happens next is, if we agree to appoint that examiner, so he will get access to this page, and he can change and update this page. So just the starting is a bit difficult, but after that, you don't have to worry. The update of the data will be done hopefully by the external examiner himself, if they are selected to be the examiner. Okay, so that is to register the new external examiner. Right, now you want to nominate the examiner, the internal and external. How the system manage that? So again, similar process. you go to the examiner nomination menu on the right side, on the left side, you can select it, and then you can select the student that you want to find his examiners, and you can click on the examiner nomination box right there in the red arrow. All right, this is the page for you to nominate. So I understand the names or the number of examiner for different program differ. It's different. So PhD perhaps has more examiner than master. Master in research, master by research or master by mixed mode might have similar number of examiner, but might have different composition, whether they are internal and external. So these are all hopefully has been considered by the system. So you have the choice to nominate the examiner based on this listing. You don't have to fill all. Again, depend on your kuliah or program criteria. So as for now, the system has this choice of examiners: internal 1, internal 2, internal alternative, external 1, external 2, and external alternative. And just for your information, the current policy given by MQA for PhD program only require 1 internal and 1 external. Okay, unless if the program is transdisciplinary nature, multidisciplinary nature, then you can nominate more than 2 examiners just to fulfill the requirement of the field of the research. Okay, so to identify or to find the name of the examiner, you can click on search. Okay, you can click on the search button. All right, so depend on whether internal and external, you will be forwarded to this page. Okay, this is the variable that I just mentioned as a response to one of the questions just now regarding the due date of the examiner when they need to submit the evaluation report. So when we want to select the examiner, we must be smart enough to know, or to hopefully know, that whether they can commit and they can evaluate our student report, right? So their number of appointment, the number of their nomination might reflect your choice. So if you see that the staff has so many appointments, meaning that they are currently assessing too many reports, so there are high probability for them to extend the evaluation. Just high probability, we don't know. He might have, a good time management to complete all, but this hopefully can be a consideration for the examiner, for the supervisor, to choose the right examiner. So we have 2 variables at least for now. If we have any other variable, we are welcome and perhaps introduce in the system. Number of active nomination, so they are not yet to be given thesis to evaluate, but their name has already shown up in the nomination list. And the number of active appointment, meaning that now the examiner is assessing or evaluating the thesis. All right, so this is the current status of nominated examiner that I just described as a response to the question just now. All right. Okay, and also if you want to look at the detail of the examiner, you can click this box so that at least, if you don't know their exact specialization, you can find them from the information from the CV. And once you agree with him, then you can nominate by clicking the green box. All right, so that is done for this examiner. Then the whole process will restart, for the different type of examiner. Okay, so for example, in this case, we have 2 internal and 2 external being nominated. All right, and once we have identified their name, we need to invite them, right? So you can use the system to invite the examiner, and you can, once you click the preview invite button, so before the invitation is sent, you can preview the email. So this is the standard email we have set to be given or to be sent to the nominated examiner. All right, and then you can click, and the actual, you see the name at the bottom is the supervisor. So as if you are the one who sent the email to the examiner. And then you click on the invite button, and then we just wait lah. After that, we just wait whether he agreed with the invitation or not. So the examiner basically will get an email. The external will be directed to a page where they have to log in into the system. Like slightly different than the internal, because they are from outside, will be given a special password to access the page, and then they will respond. All right. Okay. So after that, what happened is we need to wait, and we can check the status of acceptance of our invitation just now to the system as well through this page acceptance nomination status. So under this column examiner nomination, accept nomination, you will see the list of examiner who has responded to your invitation. So basically your job as supervisor for examiner nomination stop at this point. Stop at this point. So what is next? What happened? The name under the name that has or the examiner that has agreed to nomination, once filled, this will be monitored by the administrator. Okay, so they will send this list of name to the KPGC, to the Kuliah Postgraduate Committee meeting. So supervisor don't have to worry, and this is kind of confidential as well, because the name of the examiner should be kept confidential from the student as well as from the supervisor. Okay, so I just want to show you what happened. What happened after that process by the system that is now under the administrator prerogative. So in this case, under the administrator, they have different set of menu, but for this menu, it's almost the same as the acceptance status, as you can see in the supervisor menu just now. But for the administrator, they have additional list of examiner for approval. So when they click this list of examiner for approval, the name will be sent to the KPGC. So KPGC will see this page. So perhaps in the KPGC meeting, you can show this in the screen. You can project this in the screen so that all the members of the meeting can see the screen and decide. So in this page, you can see two important approval that you have to make. First of all, the new external examiner. So in this case, the new external examiner all has been approved, so you don't have to worry. But in the case, if the external examiner is just being registered into the system, you will see this the similar button as nomination and approval, the tick and also the cross. The tick means you approve and the cross is not approved. So the committee will need to make a decision whether to accept the new external examiner. Once they are approved, then only you can go to the next column, that is the nomination approval, to approve or to not approve the nomination. So in the case, if the committee want to see the detail of the examiner, then they can click under the name. You see the name here is Hajjah Roslina Uthman, Prof. Roslina. You can see the symbol I here. You can click on that symbol, you can see the brief email, brief CV of the staff member. If they are internal staff, then the page will lead you to IIM CV, the IIM directory of the staff. And if they are external, then bring you to the page, the CV for the excellent examiner. All right. So from this page, you can also see the approval status, the last column, that is whether the examiner has accepted the invitation to be nominated as examiner. So if everything's okay, everything are all approved, then the committee can still do something lah. They can rearrange the order of examiner. Sometimes you want to switch internal 1, internal 2, or sometimes you want to switch the alternate to become the main examiner, something like that. So we have that feature as well in the system by using the examiner sequence. So the examiner sequence page is like this, right? So now the examiner has been assigned with the type of examiner, external or external, internal 1, internal 2. You can reorder by using the sequence function. And at the bottom page, you can see the name that has been rejected. The nomination has been rejected by the committee. Because sometimes the committee might find that the name can, what should I say? What is the word? I mean, the examiner cannot evaluate. Maybe he has some relation with the student and whatnot. The supervisor without the knowledge of the supervisor, but the KPGC can decide. So in the case if the KPGC reject the nomination, so it is under the KPGC prerogative to find the new examiner. Perhaps KPGC can consult the supervisor to name a few names, but then the task to find the new examiner is under KPGC, meaning that under the administrator of the PG office. So they can look after the examiner, send invitation, nominate, and get approval back before we get a complete list of examiner. All right, so done. The examiner nomination is done, or examiner selection is done. That is the first thing that is required before we send the document to the examiner. We have to identify the examiner first. The second is to have the complete document. So these are done by menu called completion checklist. So once the student has submitted all the document, then again notification will be sent to you. And if you log in, you see there is number of submission shown under notification. Or you can just access the menu under the menu bar on the left side. Okay. For the supervisor, it's not that important to see the student status when submitting completion checklist, but for the administrator, it's very, very important. The student has to fulfill these 3 requirements. He must be cleared from the financial block, he must register for that semester, and he must be cleared from the CELPAT, from the English requirement. So once the 3 status okay, then the document can be sent to the next approving authority. But the supervisor, I would say, you can just process the document and send it to the administrator. Administrator will decide. Of course, administrator would proceed with the process because of one of the detail here, one of the requirement here is not valid. All right. After the detail, then underneath you have the required document to be uploaded by the student. The student has to submit the final thesis, and then he needs to submit the turning in report, and lastly he needs to submit the publication requirement, the publication as required in their graduation requirement. Okay, they can tick on this box and then leave comment if they want to reject the submission. Tick to check the document and comment. And if all okay, then the supervisor can click on recommend or not recommend. Not recommend, then student has to resubmit. Recommend, the next step is to administrator to process. So you can see here underneath the page, the tracking, the history of the process. Here you can see when the student submit, you can see the log is recorded there. Number 1, student Muhammad Arif has submitted all the document. After you have responded, you can see this status change. Supervisor has responded, and the comment of the supervisor on the 3 documents submitted by student is also shown. The thesis, the turning in, and the publication. This will be sent to the Kuliah administrator. You can see the following column, and lastly by the DPG for endorsement. So at least by having this log, everybody, the process is very transparent. We know where the document is. Supervisor know where the document is. I'm not really sure the student know. They might have screen to show this as well, because this is not that confidential. The DPG can also monitor the progress of the process as well. So it is all there in the system. So once the DPG say okay, then automatically the student we will turn the student status to thesis examine. Thesis examine, which as I told you earlier, once he is assigned this status, then the student don't have to pay for tuition fees. It's very important for the student, especially when it comes to tuition fees. Okay, so once we have the examiner finalized and all the document ready, then it is the task for the administrator to proceed with the next very important step. That is to appoint the examiner and submit all the document to the examiner. So this is the view from the administrator. The supervisor don't have this view, but just to share with you the whole process, I put this view in the screen, in the slide. So basically what happened, the administrator at the kuliah level and as well as the CPS level will generate appointment letter. All right. So so now in this example, all the examiner has been appointed, and then we will generate appointment letter to them. So this green button and the orange button actually is process related to this action. All right. So and then there is another page for the system to generate the required document before all the document being sent out to the examiner. The examiner, once they log in into the system, if they accept the appointment, they can log in into the system. They can access all this document again, because they have to, for example, use the system to return back the document, the field document, especially the evaluation report, as well as the honorarium form. Okay, so these are the list of documents that will be given to the examiner. And then once the administrator click the send notification to examiner, they will receive an email to appoint them and with all these documents, and they will need to respond to that email, agree with the appointment before we can start tracking. All right, so the next step naturally will be tracking. By using this menu called thesis on track. Okay, tracking of the evaluation. So the tracking start once the examiner agree with the appointment. All right. So the administrator will keep checking and checking the the report. So in this case, you can see for all the examiner, internal 1 until external 2, if they have been assigned, the record will be shown in the system. So in this case, internal 1 has 48 days left to evaluate the report. So it will turn into different colors when the case become severe and severe. So it starts with green and then red, orange, or something like that. So just to help the administrator, especially to keep track of this process, and hopefully the administrator can do this efficiently as well. All right. So once we have received all the report, now the administrator will set the viva, and then they will need to send invitation to the committee of the viva as well. Okay. So they will need to invite the chairperson, the academic secretariat, or the Centre of Study representative, if it's applicable. For P10, perhaps there's no need for Centre of Studies representative, perhaps department representative. Then you can use the system still to invite the department representative. So this has to be filled up, and then once it has been set and sent, the administrator will send the information to the members of the examination, the examiners, as well as all these people. All right. Okay. Once the Viva is done, the administrator will key in the decision made during the Viva, after the Viva, what is the title, final title of the work, and what is the status of the Viva, whether it's pass or fail, the grade, if it's applicable, especially for master, some program require grade. And you also have the potential best student award. We have that option there as well, just for additional information for the kuliah to decide the best student for that kuliah. So you can use this one as one of the variable. If yes, then maybe you want to give some weight to the nomination of best student award. All right. So the post-viva supervisor will be decided here as well. Usually it will be the examiner, the original supervisor, if the case is not severe, or if it's too severe, we can appoint even the ex-examiner. So we have the choice here to name the post-viva supervisor. And then the task of the post-viva supervisor, after being assigned, they will find this role as post-viva supervisor is to check the final thesis submission. All right, to check the final thesis submission. So this process is quite lengthy as well, quite elaborative. The supervisor, the post-viva supervisor has to check the final thesis. He has to check the correction detail. These are all forms that has been submitted by the student into the system. They will need to check the review form for thesis binding. They'll need to check the Turnitin report, the Arabic and English abstract. If the need to get approval for this abstract is there, then you need to check that as well, especially Arabic for the English written thesis. And then if all okay, then he can see all these tick, the green tick, and then they can recommend or not recommend the submission. If not, then the student has to resubmit. All right, and this process is not stopped here. In fact, to check the thesis format is not really the task of the post-viva supervisor, but usually what happens is the kuliah Centre of Study administrator that will check. So after he clicked the green button, the whole thing will be sent to the administrator. So the administrator will certify everything. Okay, the administrator will certify everything. If everything is in order, then the document will be sent to the DPG, and lastly for the dean for the final endorsement. Usually we don't ask the dean and the DPG to check the document. So we trust the administrator for this. Okay, and once the dean say yes, then the student basically, or non-officially, is graduated. Official graduation will be upon Senate approval. But what happened after the dean say yes, then the student will be sent a notification to submit the declaration of the thesis for library setting. So basically there are two parts in the form that the student need to choose. The first one is the type of copyright, whether the work is owned by the fund provider, sponsor, down to whether the work is owned by the IIUM. All right, and the second part is the type of open access, whether the student want to make it confidential, restricted, embargo, and open access. So we usually what happens when the student choose embargo is if there's an intent by the student or by the supervisor to file a pattern of the work. So you need to set some times to release the document to the public, because once it's released, then you cannot file patent anymore. So the option has to be chosen properly by the student, but it is under the supervisor prerogative to certify the choice. So again, supervisor will come into the picture. There will be email sent to the supervisor to certify the declaration. Once he has certified the declaration form, then come to the library to pull the document up into their system for their keepsake. So now the document is with the library. So the library will download into what they call SRAT system. All right, so basically that's it for now. And if you have any question, please do so, and I'll be here to respond to you. Time is still ample.
Prof. Naim, Just one thing I want to know, that recently what we do is for nomination of examiners, we do it through department, right? We submit the names to the department, and the department sent to DDPG. But now by this i-Viva, it seems to me that the supervisor is nominating the names, and it goes straight to the DDPG. Is it like that, or it has to go through the department?
In the system, basically the supervisor will send the email of invitation straight to the examiner.
Okay.
And that's it. Whether the examiner accept or not accept, the next course of action will be under the responsibility of administrator to bring up the name to get the final endorsement, the final approval by KPGC.
Oh, DDPG, you mean DDPG, right? Oh, KPGC.
KPGC will decide,
Yeah,
and
same
then
thing.
of course
Deputy Dean's office. Yeah.
the final say will be under DDPG, and then he will say yes. He will click the button yes.
Okay. The department has to do nothing here. The department, the PA and the HOD.
Yeah, we skip that action in i-Viva because I know that some
just to make the time short.
Yes, that just to make the time short, and also we try to align the different practice by different department in the university. There are quite a number of department as well that go straight that adopt like what i-Viva has for the time being. But if in the case if the current practice is necessary and can be done offline without need i-Viva to change, then please do it. For example, in the process of nominating external examiner, some department practice department meeting to look first at the CV before sending the name to the KPGC, right? But in the system,
that's right.
But in the system, the supervisor straight or any academician, you can just registered new names of examiner into the system, and the name will go straight to KPGC. So if you find that practice is necessary, then please get the department to meet first, endorse, and then the supervisor will continue submitting the name to KPGC.
That's right. The other question is that in my i-Viva, I cannot see this supervisor and all this kind of thing. What I can see, that is the post-viva supervisor in my i-Viva screen here.
Okay.
I can see only the name of my students, and on the left side there is only post-viva supervisor. Why it is so? But in your screen there is everything.
Okay. Are you saying the role as a supervisor?
I don't know that here in my i-Viva screen, that when I entered to I logged in to i-Viva for me, and I cannot see all the details here, supervisor and all these things. I can see the name of my students, but on the left side that you are showing us this supervisor and the abstract and all this kind of submission, I cannot see these columns coming to me on the left side.
Okay, I think, okay. Now,
click on supervisor and you'll get it.
Yeah, I think perhaps we can do some magic here. My technical team, if you can respond. So, Prof?
Prof, please check back.
Okay.
Check back again. We can do that.
Can you just refresh?
Refresh.
Okay, refreshing.
Can you share your screen, please?
Now coming. Yeah, that's right.
The magic.
Now coming, supervisor and examiner. Yeah, it's coming now.
So that's what I'm telling the audience just now. If in case you don't have that role, you can always consult the PG office to get the role assigned to you. Basically, for us, for academic staff, we have at least 3 default roles. You must have supervisor, you must have as intern examiner, and main post-viva supervisor. You should have these 3 roles assigned to you by the kuliah.
That's right. Thank you.
Welcome. So by the way, these are the contact person at CPS. If you have any concern about the system, question, comment, suggestion, you can always send to this officer, Sister Damia, who is in charge of i-Viva unit, and also Brother Abdul Ghani, who is our IT liaison officer at CPS.
Is Brother Isan there, or he was there before? Brother Isan?
Yeah, now they switch officers. So Sister
I
Damia is
see.
now,
Yeah.
so Brother Isan is in charge of
Yeah.
admission now. Admission.
Yeah, we miss him so much, you know.
So you have new person now.
Yeah, he was very lovely person.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Is there any more question?
Yes, Prof. Naim. May I?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, maybe I missed this part about the i-Viva portal. Is it in effect from maybe recently or long time ago?
Again, i-Viva proposal?
No, i-Viva portal. i-Viva, this i-Viva. Is it in effect from
Recently?
Recently.
Oh yeah, the system.
Yeah, it's recent.
We launched the system in the late last year, but of course the adoption of the system has to be decided by the kuliah, especially the DDPG office. So I can see some DDPG here. Maybe they can make decision for the kuliah to adopt or not to adopt, because it's all depend on them to make sure the system is running, because administrator are all located in the office of postgraduate.
Okay, because in my case, according to the portal I see here, I can find one of my supervisee for masters. He is already in the last stage, maybe after submission and revision after that. But what I can see here is still nothing, any action here. There is no any intention submission. Something it means that I don't know.
Yeah. So as I told the audience earlier, the process, the system process actually must start from A to Z, meaning that the student must start with the intention submission using the system to get to the end of the process. So if our student is already in the mid somewhere along the process, then we cannot use the system. So we have to go them through the manual mode. But if we have new student about to submit intent, we can ask them to use the system.
That's clear. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Assalamualaikum. There are many colleagues who are attempting to be enrolled, but they were denied, maybe because the number exceeded.
Dr. Abdul Hamid, your voice echoing.
Okay.
Voice echoing. Maybe two devices open. Can you please mute one device?
It's only one.
It's only one.
Now is okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Still echoing.
Dr. Naim, there are many colleagues who are attempting to be enrolled, but they were denied. Is it because the number exceeded already the limited number? There are friends who cannot join us just now. Is it because of the number?
Okay. Perhaps somebody can help me to decipher the code given by the prof. Prof, just now your voice is still echoing. I cannot get you. But if somebody in here can understand, can you rephrase the question? Help.
Or Prof, maybe you
Some
can
people
write
could not
down
join
in the chat.
some people could not join the training. He said some people could not join the training here. Maybe some blocking or something, or maybe they were not invited.
Oh.
That is what Dr. Hamid said.
Okay. Technical team?
Actually, doctor, this meeting is no required to sign in, so everyone can join actually. It's okay if they miss this training today, so maybe they can join for our next training is on 21st of this month. So inshallah, even though this one is focusing on the Pago and Kuantan campus, but the feature is the same feature, so you can ask them to join. Or another option is you can ask him to view the recorded versions. Later on, we will put in the CPS website.
Assalamualaikum. I think if the Dr. Abdul Hamid cannot join, maybe is from work from home, because it must get the VPN access and then only can access the i-Viva, if that is the case. Is it that, Dr. Abdul Hamid?
I think the question was some participant can't enter the Zoom, so that's why they can't join the Zoom itself. Actually,
they
the Zoom
cannot access the system. If they cannot access from home, of course they can't access it if they don't have VPN access. If they are from IIUM, they can access, but if from home, they have to get the VPN access first before they enter the system. Okay.
So like I said previously, Dr. Hamid, maybe you can inform your friends, your colleagues to join in next few weeks on 21st, or they can watch the recorded version 1.
Yeah, no problem, Dr. Prof. Abdul Hamid. You know what happened? What is our planning actually? We will have these two session introduction for IIUM community today and on 21st for academic staff. At the same time, we are going to conduct some session with the student as well. But after that, if your kuliah want me to give a training for your particular kuliah, you can always do so as well. Please go through your DDPJ office and they can set arrangement for me to come down and then share with you i-Viva. I'm going to share with the staff member at your Centre of Study i-Viva system. Inshallah. Okay. Is there any more question?
Nothing, inshallah.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. All right, Sister Damia, I pass back to you. But before that, I would like to thank from my behalf, of course, to all the audience. I really hope that this initiative would be useful. Will help ease our job managing student thesis and i-Viva.
Sure.
Yeah, actually, we initiate this solution because I myself have the problem. So hopefully others who has that similar problem by having the system could solve actually, or if not all, partially their problem by using the system, inshallah. So I pass back to Sister Damia. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Sorry, before we close our training today, we have some questions in the chat box. I believe this is about the VPN access. So, and then I think Madam Karini already answered it in the chat box as well. So I think with that, we can end our e-training today. Thank you, Prof. Naim, for your insightful information. So hopefully for those who are missed today's training, they can join our next trainings in 21st of February, 2:30 p.m. Inshallah, we are going to use the same platform. We are going to use the Zoom platform. So with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you joining our event today. Thank you to our speaker, Prof. Naim. So before we close our e-training today, let's end our session today with the recitations from Al-As and Tasbih Kafarah.
Thank you so much, Prof. Naim.
Thank you very much.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Shukran. Assalamualaikum.
Afwan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
Prof. Naim. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
Thank you, Prof. Naim.
You're welcome.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Azika. Kejap nak exit full screen ya. Aku tengah terhegeh-hegeh benda ni. I'm ni home quarantine sebab ada my daughter dia positif gitu. And then I pun ada.
Oh ya ke? Alah, Prof.
Okay,
Take care, Prof.
So technical teams from CPS side, you can end our send your session today. So we can end our session today and stop recording. Thank you so much for today. Thank you, Prof. Naim.